Listen, this today is for homework. This sheet here will be for homework, and I'm going to do 3 or 4 of these for you tonight to answer any questions that you might have right now about the homework. And later on, we'll talk about solutions when you get back with your homework tomorrow. So I'm going to go over our first question here, and we're talking again about factoring. If I have to factor, and we've always talked about if I'm going to factor anything like this, I feel I'm going to be factoring it into a binomial, and I'm putting it equal to 0. Obviously, FOIL. We think of FOIL all the time when we use it. And we always say, hey, the first term are the first terms in our binomial. So the factors of n squared being n times n, first terms. And I told you, I'm not really concerned about this middle term, the linear term. We're going to get that, and we'll use it later, but my biggest concern is the constant, 25. And what I get from that. I know I'm going to use the factors of 25, but it also tells me a little other thing. When it's positive, it tells me that the signs are both positive in the factors. So right away, seeing that I have no numerical coefficient with that quadratic term, I can place my 2 positives down. Factors of 25. 25 and 1. 5 and 5. I'm looking for something that's going to add up to 10. Certainly isn't 25 and 1. So we're going to go with 5 and 5. Now I've got to make sure that my middle term is satisfied. And with FOIL, I know that the sum of the outside and the sum of the inside will give me my middle term. 5n plus 5n gives me my middle term of 10n. Fairly easy. Not really hard if we think about it. If we think about the advantages the constant term gives us when we look at the quadratic equation, it helps us right away. Now, what would I do with those? Is there anything that makes me think that this has a special connotation to it? Anything about this? You're right. It's a perfect square trinomial. So I'm multiplying n plus 5 times n plus 5 equals 0. If I use FOIL, my product would be n squared plus 10n plus 25 equal to 0. If I asked you for the zeros, we get n plus 5 equal to 0, where n equals negative 5. Any question? Excellent, that's good. Let's try a second one. Little different. Why is this different? You're right. M squared is a perfect square, but 28 is not a perfect square. So we're going to factor it pretty much the same way. We're going to look at FOIL and we're going to say, geez, if we have to look at FOIL, what are we doing really? I'm undoing what we did to FOIL in the first place. So I'm looking here and I'm saying, geez, I know that for F representing the first terms gives me M times M, which gives me my M squared. Now I have to look at the constant term. The constant term has a lot of specialties to it, tells us a lot of things. What do you think it tells me first here? You're right. It tells me that the signs are unlike. I have a positive and a negative sign. So let's take a look. I don't have a numerical coefficient on that quadratic term. So I can write those in right away. Anyone disagree? Okay, so we're all set with that. But if I look at 28, 28's got a few factors, doesn't it? I could certainly use 28 times 1. We know that. I could use 14 times 2. I could use 7 times 4. But what I'm looking for is the fact that that constant term's negative. So I'm not looking for the sum. I'm looking for the difference to get that middle term. So let's think about it. 28 minus 1, 27. 14 minus 2, 12. 7 minus 4, that's 3. But is 3 positive or negative? Negative, you're right. So I want to make sure that the factor with the largest absolute value is my negative factor. So I'm going to place it in here. And I'm going to place 4 right here. And if I look at that, and if I used FOIL, I just undid FOIL, and if I used the distributive property with these two factors, I'd be back to what I already started. Any question about that? Anybody? You sure? Very good. That's excellent. That's a good job. Let's take a look at this one. I look at this and I say, geez, again, I don't have a numerical coefficient with the quadratic term. Makes it kind of easier. So I'm going to go back again and I'm going to unfold. I know that k times k will give me my first term in my trinomial. I'm going to look at my constant term. My constant term is 6. Factors of 6. 6 and 1. 2 and 3. Any questions? No, you're right though. You're right. The constant term is positive, so I know that both signs within here are alike. But my middle term is negative. So what do you think these signs have to be? You're right, negative. Do I have factors that add up to 7? Michael, that's a great job. 6 and 1. Does it matter where I put them? I don't think so. You're right, it doesn't matter. There is no numerical coefficient in front of that quadratic term. It's not going to affect it either way. So I can put 6 or 1 in either. And again, I know that my outside and inside factors will give me my middle term. So I have k subtract 6 times the quantity k subtract 1 equal to 0. Therefore, k minus 6 will equal 0. K K minus 1 would equal 0. K being equal to 6, K being equal to 1. Any questions? Got to be sure. Okay. Your homework, again, is right here. It says solve each equation by factoring. So we're solving the equations by factoring. When we solve by factoring, we're not just factoring the equation. We're also placing each factor equal to 0 and finding the zeros. We all set? Hey, good luck in your homework. We have any questions or anything to review, we'll do that in class next time we meet.